when you're reading, and I do believe in little reading notes, is to keep them and to try to summarize an article in just a line, 2 or 3. And that even includes the empirical papers. Why is that the case? Because scholars, being what they are, want to maximize the number of papers they can. So they have a paper with too many good ideas, they look at that and they chop that up, right? So in fact, some scholars write the same idea over time and time again, and you've got to be careful not to become fixated on some person because you like it, because you certainly will soon find out that that person is windy. They will say the same things over and over again. We tend to have a higher regard for our own reading and writing and thinking than is perhaps optimal from a social point of view. Now, as far as reading goes, I do think it is important to do 2 things. One is to find an area, not necessarily a field, but an area, some kind of question that you might be interested in. Like, you know, you say bubbles. Well, bubbles are too broad, but maybe you would think about bubbles and liquidity and the banking system. Start reading all the time. In graduate school, I always had 1 day a week when I didn't have classes, and I would go over to the library and spend about 2 hours, sometimes 3 hours, just reading through there. Now, that's not enough to really become an expert in any week or 2, but if you do that for several years, you're going to be onto something. Secondly, write every paper you possibly can in that area. So when you get done with your quals, you're ready to go. You've got some serious ideas. Thirdly, find someone on the faculty who is also similarly interested in this. It may be the opposite way. You may start out with talking to a faculty member about some idea, and that will get you going. But I think having something on your mind all the way through graduate school, besides just the next test, the next exercise, the next term paper, etc., is a very, very good thing. Now, as for reading, there's another kind of reading I think you should do as well. And that is reading outside of your field. Reading in areas that may or may not be complementary. You will only know if they're complementary ex post after you've done it. So, for instance, if you're in my area of public choice, you might find reading in all these new areas on justice and the social psychology of fairness is really, really quite useful. Since all the time in public choice we're talking about redistribution and what have you, having some notion of what legitimacy is all about, and more than just that you would pick up from coffee shop discussions with your friends, is very, very useful. I don't really have a lot more to say other than work harder than you think you can work. And it's amazing when you do that. It's like swimming, right? Or any sport. Doing it builds up a sort of a muscle, a moral muscle, but which means that you can do more and more and more. I do agree with everyone who's ever looked at this, that this may have costs in your personal life. That's why you have to be also very much as a diplomat and bring that other person in your life into the enterprise. It's funny that Benoit would talk about his wife and her disinterest in his work in local public finance management. My wife is the daughter of an economist. How about that? Fact one. Fact two, she's never taken a course in economics. Third, she's a very fetching, very, very fluent, very interesting woman, and she, in days past, when she didn't have the kind of administrative duties she has, she's involved in Pomona College, was a great hostess. And I'll never forget one time we had a party down when I was visiting the Hoover Institution at Stanford. And this party had my colleagues who were there, Milton Friedman and Gary Becker and the late George Stigler and I don't know, some lesser knowns, but it was a big group, right? And Rhoda had spent the whole week making an Indonesian rice toffee. She had taken a course in this way back in Washington when she was a graduate student. Alas, she did not finish her degree. She is an ABD in Germanic language and literature, and instead she majored in babies and my career. And now she has a career where she makes more money than I do, and not only that, she earns it. But anyway, back to this story. We're at this party, and Milton Friedman he's now gone, was quite a guy, and his wife became close with Rhoda over the years. But this first meeting, he finds out she says something, and she uses some economic jargon, and he says, "Oh, Rhoda, are you an economist?" She says, "No," and she said, "Well, I picked that up from Tom and from all you guys hanging around there." And she said, "You know, my dad was an economist." He said, "Oh my God." He says, "You didn't take it?" "No, I didn't take any. You know, I was more interested in literature, and I took painting and art and poetry and, you know, all that kind of stuff." She says, I could barely figure out what a percentage is, right, on something. I can't do that. I don't want to do that. And so he said, "Well, what do you think about economists?" And she looks at him, and by the way, she might have been on her third tankard of plunk. I don't remember what it was, but it was a nice bottle of red. And she was drinking out. So she says, "Well, you want the truth?" He said, "Well, sure." She says, "I think you guys are really smart." She said, "No question you're about in the academic." He said, "You guys are really the smartest." But she says, "You know, everything you say sounds either obvious or wrong." So we will leave you with that, and to have a partner with that kind of disinterest is really important, because I have, through the years, when I had something really important to do, forced her to sit down there and listen to what I have written, and she gives me some pretty good pointers, mostly to abbreviate what I'm saying. And she also asked me to do the same thing, so I have to read these just dreadful reports that administrators write to one another about, you know, students, etc., etc. So we have had complementary skills, and that works out very well. But for those of you who will find your life's mate in this program and all that, I wish you the best of luck. And I must say, although it seems like a stupid decision to me, that empirically it seems to be just work out just fine. And we're all glad that we have a lot of new faces here, and that and we hope to have you around for a long time. Finally, be sure to visit your profs outside the class. They have office hours. Half the time we sit there like the Maytag repairman. Nothing happening, right? So come in. And that does not mean you have to have an exact question. Oh, how did you do this in class? Or, am I doing my homework problem right? That's fine. But come in and tell us what your hopes and dreams are, and we'll see if we can give you a little bit of our knowledge, which we've gained over time. And Art is absolutely right. I've known him for 37 years, and I've known Tommy for 43 years. And collectively...
I'm only 42.
Right. Collectively, when we think of all the people in both sides of the department, there's a couple of 100 years of hanging around you know, doing no use